Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm your host, Steve Carroll. Let's be honest about this. Whoever was going to join me this week was given the hospital pass after what happened on Saturday. I was thinking, is anyone going to accept it? But to be fair, Andy Gordon has stepped up and has happily accepted it. I'm very grateful to him. I hope you are all too, because some of the stuff we're going to discuss here isn't going to be enjoyable. It might be traumatic based on what we went through on Saturday, but sometimes it's best just to get these things out in the open, isn't it? Andy, thank you very much for accepting. How are you?
Oh no! If you ever want somebody to bring a little ray of sunshine, you know where I am, mate. Yeah, so it's obviously a day after Sheffield United, so yeah, I'm in a brilliant mood, mate. So yeah.
Okay, well that's something. But I certainly think waiting to do this until after that game has perked me up a bit because my enthusiasm for the Sheffield United game was incredibly low. But I do feel a little bit better now after that, even though the result didn't go well. But we will come to that later. But we're going to have to start, aren't we, with Saturday's disaster. I can't really describe it any other way. I mean, myself and John Russ were discussing it last week. I mean, about how, you know, it's Cardiff are not a great side. That's the simple truth of it. They're down the bottom for a reason. And they've humiliated us. I can't describe it any other way. Shocking, but the worst derby in my lifetime. Have you seen a worse one, Andy? Obviously, you're a little bit older than me, so you'd be a good person to ask, really. But
yeah, sure.
What can you say?
I remember us losing 4-1. I think it was in the Welsh Cup second leg. I think that's the only time I can remember us losing by 3 goals. And I've seen us lose at home at the Vetch. There was one time we played 3 times in a week, all at home, and I think we lost 2 of them. So I mean, I've seen our fair share against defeats against them, but it's very rare you see a capitulation. And after the first half hour on Saturday, that's exactly what that was. And it was the most ridiculous thing for me was I work in Cardiff. Like I said, I've got to go in a couple of times a week. And we had a Christmas party, right? And I was speaking to a Cardiff fan, and all he did all night was slag off Callum Robinson. Oh, we got this garbage bloke up front. He's absolutely rubbish. He's terrible. He never score anything. He's absolutely awful. And he's the one that bags 2 against us, and we bloody just handed them to him, didn't we? So yeah. So that was great on Monday, by the way. Having to go in the office and see them smiling. So yeah, thanks, guys. But no, it was a capitulation. And I can't remember the last time I saw that against, well, pretty much anyone really, let alone them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you've shown the type of character that our team didn't. But you fronted up on Monday. I'm sure you would have much preferred to work from home and not have to have done it. But you went in and you took it, and that's all you can say. I've been very lucky. In my place, there's only one Cardiff fan. And so far, he's not in my department. I do bump into him sometimes. I've avoided him so far this week, which is good. But if it comes to it, I will have to try and be the bigger man, I suppose. But
no, mate. So at the end of the day, we've won so many against them. Let them have their one fun. That's what I said to them. Just knock them off a perch quickly. It's the way to do it. But double, mate. Double.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Look, we've definitely still dished out more pain than what we've taken. There's no 2 ways about that. But you know, I don't think that's much of a consolation right now. The consolation might come, you know, once the dust has settled a little bit. But right now, I'm still not best pleased. Really, I mean, it's a broad question. I mean, where did it go wrong? I mean, I look at the first half and I think, well, let's start with the team. Actually, I mean, there was a relief when Darlin was and Cabango were both named in the team. I think we have to say that there was a cheer actually in the away concourse when that happened. You know, the genuine sense of relief, I think, that they were going to play, because I think if one or other didn't, or even both, I think we all feared what happened on Saturday would have actually happened. Whereas, unfortunately, it happened anyway, but it would have been even worse, wouldn't it? But I think that gave optimism. I didn't mind us going with a deeper midfield with Allen, Franco and Grimes, mainly because I thought we'd keep the ball well. And, you know, if we're 0-0 half-time in a derby, I'm fairly content with that, to be honest with you. But, you know, leaving Cullen up front on his own was always going to cause a bit of a problem because it doesn't really suit him. So, but I mean, at half-time, I'd say first half hour, we've done okay. We've kept a lot of the ball, not created a lot. Franco had that one chance, but then it did feel like Cardiff were coming into it a bit, didn't it? Towards the end of the half, they were getting in our faces a bit, and I would say that they were on top, and we needed half time, really, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, the first 30, 35 minutes, we were dominant. And yeah, that selection, I think that was probably what I was trying to do, wasn't it? Just kind of dominate the midfield, nullify them, just kind of guess keep the ball really. I was a bit worried when I saw the team. I must admit, I'm not a fan of Joe as our attacking midfielder in essence. It's that's it's not his best position. He's not as mobile as he was at the best of times anyway. But that did worry me a bit, especially as I think Cullen's absolutely thriving in that sort of 10 role. So I was hoping we go at them a little bit. And I forgot Obi and Sheeny much just up front. But I thought I would have preferred that. But I can get what Williams is trying to do with that. Fair enough. But yeah, first 35, great. After that, they I wouldn't say they were battering at the door, but they had a couple of very decent chances, and the momentum going into half time was definitely with them. And given our second half syndrome of we generally have a good first half and a very iffy second half, that was a cause for concern going into half time, because first halves we generally are right and second halves we generally not, and yeah, that's how it came to pass, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did really, didn't it? I mean, I've got to be honest and say that I've not watched any of the goals back, but I do also feel as if they're already etched in my brain anyway. If I close my eyes, I can see them. So I think the first one, Ronaldo gave the ball away from what I remember.
Yeah.
And then the ball finds its way into Robinson. It's quite a good finish from and to be fair, it's right in the corner, not all I can do. But it's just that giving the ball away cheaply, isn't it? Which, was the same for the second one, essentially. I mean, Timon has put Robinson through 1-on-1. He's already confident.
Yeah.
Obviously, having already scored the first one. And then I think for me, as soon as that went in, we're doomed, aren't we? I think it didn't feel like we could score two. You always think you might get one, but the game had gone really within 5 minutes of the restart, didn't it?
We never look particularly good chasing the game, absolutely. But that first one, I think Ronald, I don't know what's happened to him this season, but he gave the ball away countless times, and that was another one. But it wasn't a particularly dangerous position, and the ball went to Callum Robinson. There was two centre halves there. I mean, Darwin was the one who really was nearest him, but he just gave him all the time in the world to turn. He didn't close him down. And then I don't think he was within 5 yards of him by the time he took the shot. And it was kind of a bobbler into the corner on it. But no fault in Vigouroux for that. It's one of those he can't save. But I think Ronald's got to do better, and Darwin's got to do a lot better with that. He's got to get a lot closer to his man there. And I guess the second one, God knows what Timon was thinking with that. I think his head had gone. But then, I think it was again, Robinson was through against Darwin. I don't think there's much fault with Darwin with this one. He was kind of wrong-footed with it. And same with Vigouroux. But, you can't hand them, of all teams, a 2-goal deficit, especially with us. We're not great at chasing games. I think we're quite decent, front runners and all that. But I think chasing them, that's not our strength, is it? Especially with the team we had out there as well, with only... Cullen as a real attacking threat, really. And I think our wing players, and Ronald, were just absolutely nowhere, weren't they? Just bullied off everything.
Yeah, I thought Ronald and in particular, they shrunk. It's like they couldn't deal with it. And I got to be honest, right? It wasn't particularly intimidating up there. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was loud in patches, and it would be when you're losing or whatever. But Ronald, for example, he didn't really want to seem to take anybody on. And then if someone tackled him, he was almost like moaning at the ref, as if to say, well, that's not on. It's like, mate, it's a derby game, and generally, people just put a tackle in, and you've got to be stronger than that. You've got to show a bit more courage, I think. And I say the same for Eom. I think it's probably damning for Eom that he didn't, play at all then against Sheffield United last night. I mean, you can't go into derbies and be carrying players like that. I think that just sets the tone off badly from the start. And I mean, a lot of other players, I'm not saying they're particularly good, but I mean, you've got to at least front up in these things. People do make mistakes. We accept that. I mean, Timon, we've just discussed now, it's a bad pass. He's been punished. It does happen. It's happened in really bad circumstances, of course. But I mean, you've got to be a man in these derbies. I mean, if you're not, then you're really going to be found wanting. And I think that happened to a couple of them, didn't it?
It did. I mean, I think the physicality did for him, didn't it? He's come from Korean football. It's not the most physical. I think when he came here, I think that was the one thing he said he needed to work on. And I think he's been all right generally this season before his injury. Since he's come back, he's been a bit of a shadow of where he was. And I think Saturday was really the the summit of that, wasn't it? Ronald, I think his confidence seems shot. I think last season I loved him. This season didn't have a pre-season. I don't know whether that's knocked him, but he's just not been there at all. And I think he's becoming increasingly tetchy. I think the last few games, frustrated probably as well. He's not getting decisions. He's calling for things that probably aren't fouls. I'm not one question his work rate as it goes. I think probably saw that yesterday as well. But I think his confidence seems gone. He's not taking his man on. He's not, in an attacking sense, he's not doing much. And I think, the club said it themselves a couple of months ago. They were applauding his defensive work. Well, that's great, mate. But he's one of a forward three. That's why you're supposed to be doing your job. And he's not. I mean, I think he scored once this season. Has he? A couple of assists maybe. It's not enough. It's not enough from both of them ultimately. And I think and that's why there wasn't a lot of confidence when we went 2 down. We'd actually pull it back because we just don't have the threat.
No, exactly. I mean, I think I was having a conversation with someone the other day about the starting lineup at Southampton, and I think they were only between the front four. There were only 5 goals all season. You're thinking it's a big problem, isn't it? I mean, apart from Cullen, nobody really seems capable of chipping in. I mean, like I said, Ronaldo's got one. Iom still hasn't scored yet. Obviously, a midfield 3 of Grimes, Allen, and Franco. They're never going to chip in with many, are they? So. Then you look into the bench. What has Vipotnik got 4 now? Bianchini's got 3 or 4. Is it? Obviously, because he's scored against Sheffield United. It's we're struggling for goals, aren't we? So it really did feel far fetched that we would get a second, and well, in the end we would have needed 3, wouldn't we? Because we conceded from a set piece, and then it was just general misery, really, wasn't it? A friend of mine actually lives in the area, so he was allowed to make his own way there. So he decided to walk out to 3-0, and I was quite envious. Whereas the rest of us had to basically just stand and take being, abused and, the usual stuff, really, which we're really not used to in this fixture, are we? Because, I was thinking about this, even probably since the era of the stadium, even when Cardiff have beaten us or been winning, it's never usually been for that long. They've beaten us in the last minute once, and I remember Craig Bellamy scored down our place quite late. But in general, we haven't had to suffer in a game like that, have we? And it was, it was horrible. I can't describe it as any other way. And, when I see like the chairman saying, we understand the disappointment, it's like, I really don't think that you do, because I've left my house at about, 7:45 in the morning. I've gone down to the railway for a pint. Now, admittedly, I don't have to do that, but it is Derby Day, so I feel like I do have to do it. And then I've had to wander over to the stadium. They all say, Harper State, you've got to be here to board at 9. And I'm immediately thinking, this is garbage. What's the point of this? We didn't leave till 9:45. Then you get in the ground, and obviously you're just waiting around forever. And then you witness that absolute crap. And then you're not back until 4:00. A day has been wasted. You spent a fortune on it. And it's like, I understand the disappointment. I don't think you do, mate. And that's the problem sometimes as well, isn't it? It's like, just don't say these empty words.
He can't know. Best will in the world, he can't know. He's not from here. He's new to the area. I think he lives in Swansea. He's mentioned it a couple of times, but he can't know. Best will in the world, and I think he's very good at trying to say the right thing. I'm not sure he follows through with it a lot of the time, but I think he's trying to say the right thing there and just trying to, show that he understands. And to a point, he probably does. Whoever he supported as a kid, if they lost to their rivals, I'm sure he can understand that. But he obviously can't understand what it's like for a Swans fan to lose a derby. So no, but so he probably didn't feel it as the rest of us did. I mean, I didn't go to the game, so I was able to just mute it 3-0. So and pour myself another drink. So it's there were benefits to not going, absolutely. And fair play to everyone who went and stuck it out, because it's, as you say, it's been a long, long time since we've had to put up with that, home or away. And I think is it Matt Grimes has won as many derbies as Cardiff have in the last 30 years. Which I think tells a story of how we've dominated this fixture. But now this is 2 years running where we've lost the away game, isn't it?
It is. I wish they had gone down after the Cabango winner, because I did feel at that point it can't really get a lot better. We've won 4 in a row, and obviously they, without I think Reading's points deduction, they would have gone down by 1 point, and that 1 point would have been the Cabango goal, wouldn't it? Whereas now since then, obviously it's 1 win in 4. So it does feel like it's turned the other way now. I think a concern for me actually with this fixture now is that there must have been like a bit of a fear factor for Cardiff because we dominated it, and then obviously we've also, you think particularly the Cabango one, we twisted the knife at the end. Really, I mean that would have been so crushing. Obviously wonderful for us, but I mean, are they going to fear us so much now? I don't think that they are really. I wonder if it's gone the other way because we probably have players now that are in fear because, like we said, some of them didn't like it, did they? So you wonder now is this is going to be a harder fixture for us to win in probably next season as well if it takes place. So that's a concern for me because the last few years have not been the most enjoyable. The most enjoyable moments have been those wins over Cardiff, of which there have been a few. And now this is the first time for, certainly in my time following the Swans, that we've gone through a season and, they've taken 4 points off us. It's, it's a gutter, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, once you lost the hoodoo, that doesn't help. But at the end of the day, who's going to fear us anyway in the league? I mean, our best two players this season have been Liam Cullen and Franco. The rest haven't really been all that close, and a few of them have been a long way away from it. We aren't the good team. Our squad is not as strong as it was 2 years ago. It's probably not as strong as it was last year. So I mean, why would anyone fear us really? We don't have goal scorers. We can't keep clean sheets. We're not a team to be scared of. I think we get some good results now and again. I think we've got probably better results than we deserve this season in many ways. And fair play to them for getting that. But why would anyone be worried about us really? But yeah, we had the jinx over them, didn't we? And that has gone, and we'll have to get that back. Hopefully next season. Well, I don't think we're going to. Well, we're not going down, and I don't think they are either. But yeah, I mean, it's a game where we're probably going into it with something to prove next year, and that hasn't been the case until now. Really, we've gone through an unprecedented time in terms of domination of this fixture, which has been great as a fan, but I don't know. Sometimes gravity calls, doesn't it? And maybe
it was never going to last forever, was it? I mean, got to try and make the most of it while it does. But I mean, I think from my point of view, I look at the time where we played them, around when we first got in the Championship, and then obviously we've gone in the Prem, and I think we did marginally edge it over that period. But to be fair, Cardiff did have quite a good team, so you have to accept that on occasions then they would beat us, but we've lost to a terrible Cardiff side. I think that's what pains me the most. And being dominated by one. And I mean, I just can't deal with that. If we got well beaten by a Chopper and a Bothroyd team, sort of easier to stomach, even though I can't stand both of those blokes. They were good players. But I mean, this lot, useless.
If I was sort of thinking about a team that I'd want to see, I don't think there's any of their players I'd actually want in them. I mean, none of them are any good. Absolutely, that Ashford looks like he's got a bit of promise, but it's some of the better players like Rolls. I mean, they've been there forever. We've dominated them forever. There's not much to them. So I mean, the fact you look at the league table, they are not a good team. They're not a good squad. That Robertson scored, I think, is their top scorer by a distance. I think their second one's something like 3 or 4 goals, something like that, which are actually similar to us, I suppose. But they are not a good team. They're in the bottom 6, so I think they were in bottom 3 for a moment yesterday again, weren't they? So they are not a good team, and to capitulate to them, but in that way. But then I guess it's consistent in a way, isn't it? Because we capitulated to Portsmouth, who were bottom 3, capitulated to Hull, or beat Plymouth, but I'm still at the home game to go with them. But our record lately against the bottom 6 isn't brilliant, is it? And this is the latest, the most painful example of that, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I think we should probably talk about that in more general now, because I was going into the run over Christmas and thinking, well, it's quite a convenient fixture, this, really. I mean, teams that are struggling, but we probably didn't come out with it too bad a total. But I mean, like you say, you look at Hull and Portsmouth and now Cardiff, for example, 3 teams in the bottom 6. 2 of them have battered us, really. And the other one, we have only lost by the odd goal, but we were really bad in that game as well. I mean, are there question marks over the manager, do you think, regarding this? Because, I mean, we do expect a bit better than that, do we? I'm not saying we've got ideas of playoffs necessarily or anything like that, but I mean, earlier in the season as well, we were quite hard to beat when we weren't giving away many goals. But now we are gifting a lot of goals, and we've been easy to beat, haven't we? It's not. I think we're not, asking a lot to demand better than this, are we?
No, I think we've gone from a team that couldn't score and didn't concede to a team that scores more goals than it did, but concedes at will. I mean, I think that Leeds game we saw with Sunderland. We conceding 3 as a matter of course, aren't we? The manager always has to take his fair share of the blame for that. I mean, I guess you can't mention Williams without mentioning the West Brom speculation, which I think, in all fairness, I think was a bit overdone. To be honest, I think he was trying to make a flippant joke, which didn't translate very well when typed up. But he should have been a bit savvier than that. I accept that. But away from home, we've generally been all right until the last few games. So it's just the home games in that period haven't been bad. We've won 2. The QPR first half was as good as anything we've seen in a long time. So I mean, when you've got a period like this, the manager always comes under pressure, especially when he creates a bit of a PR blunder as well. But I think I've got to look at the squad I have. And I asked myself, is this squad top 6? Not even close. Is it top up? I don't think it is. I think it's probably, if you're looking at resources, we're probably bottom 6, I'd say. So for us to be, way above that, I think you've got to give Williams credit for that, at the very least. Is it the most exciting at the moment? Probably not. But there's been times when it's been good. There's been times when it's been dull. It's, but I think that's part of the course, isn't it? So
classic mid-table, isn't it?
I think that's exactly what we're very mid. it's basically how I'd sum it up. I think the criticisms are a bit overblown with him. I hope the club aren't. I don't think sacking him now, as quite a few people are calling for, is the right thing to do. I mean, there's an element of money to it. I don't think we're as far gone on FFP as some of the worst case scenarios people are talking about. But it won't do our financial position any good to get rid of another manager in another season. That's when clubs start to struggle. Is when they keep on doing that as a matter of course. So I think the club probably has a decision to make in terms of whether they think Williams is the man to take us forward. I think you should do that every season. But I don't think that now was the time for a knee-jerk reaction. I think maybe a cool head. It would help if we won last night, of course. But cool heads, just see how it goes for a bit, and go from there. Because I think we're not under any real threat at the moment. I mean, that could change if we go on a 10-game losing run, of course, but that it's unlikely. So I think just take a breath and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that there is that, and I think the problem always is with a derby defeat in particular. I mean, it hurts, as we know, doesn't it? So, and you don't want that feeling, and you want to feel like there's some sort of punishment for it, I guess, sometimes because of the pain that we are all going through. But you do have to try and take stock on occasions. I mean, I'm not saying it's brilliant at the moment, but it certainly could be worse. But I mean, my enthusiasm was very low before Sheffield United. I have to admit, because I think a midweek game, they're never the best this time of year, playing a team at the top after what had happened Saturday. I mean, it can't really get much more uninspiring than that. But I did venture down there, and I've got to say, particularly for 45 minutes, it was quite encouraging, wasn't it? We've got a nice early goal from Bianchini. We had a few other chances, could have had a penalty. I mean, and this was against a good team, a team with a far bigger budget than us. I mean, considering where my expectations were, it was a lot better than I thought, and I'm sure it was the same for you.
Typical Swans. I think we were swapping messages before the game, and I think I said typical Swans, we win today. And I thought it was Nostradamus at the time when I saw that, but it would be just so on brand with the Swans, wouldn't it, if we capitulate in the derby and then beat the team that's going for the top of the table. And for 45 minutes, it looked very realistic. We were one up, probably should have been 2 or 3. We had some decent chances. I had a couple of decent penalty shouts. I think the ref got them both right, in all fairness. I think if they'd been against us, we would have said, "Oh, what are you on about?" So I don't know, but we 1-0 at half time, more than deserved that. 2-0 wouldn't have flattered us at all, and to do that against, as you say, one of the teams with probably one of the biggest budgets, one of the best squads in the league. It was great, and that's just so typical us, isn't it? We crap 1 minute, and then we turn in a performance like that, and then the next we so hot and cold. It's absolutely maddening. But yeah, absolutely. Half time, I was optimistic until I realised the second half was coming, and us in second halves don't go very well, do they?
No, they don't. And I think the other problem really for me was that you're looking at the opposition, and as I said, a significantly bigger budget. You think they can't be worse. And when you look at the bench, you see the likes of Brereton, Diaz, players that we know would walk into our team. Let's be realistic about it.
Yeah.
And they've made 3 changes, which is quite unusual, but it probably shows how Chris Wilder was feeling. And unfortunately, we've gifted a goal quickly. There's been a red card. I think the red could, that is contentious. That could have gone either way. The problem is, I don't see it being rescinded, if I'm honest, because I just think that's those challenges. It's hard for them to ever change their mind on. But I do wonder if the yellow had been given, whether you would get a retrospective ban for it. I'm not convinced you would, but I mean, just like Saturday, then 5 minutes into the second half, the game has a totally different feel, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did, and no, what you got to do in that second half, try and do what Cardiff did in the weekend, keep the momentum going, and we didn't, and they did. Their changes really helped, but as you say, they got a bench, we don't have one, and they had the ability to do that, which goes back to the respective strength of the squads. Even us, with our competitors in sort of the mid-table and the lower part of the league, we don't have the depth of squad that other teams do. So yeah, I mean, it was wasn't a great goal to concede, a bit messy defensively. The shot was at Figueroa. I don't think he was at fault, to be honest with you. It was at him from close range. I think even if it was straight at him, it's going to be difficult for him to save at that pace. And Harry Darwin, I think he was terrible against Cardiff, but I think he was just rank bad luck with that one. I think it was a swing and a miss, wasn't it? And he happened to catch the player. Different camera angles show different levels of force that endeavour at different levels of contact. I think you summed it up perfectly. It's probably an orange in it. I think it's. I don't think Sheffield United players were quite streetwise by gathering around the ref, doing a bit of pushing and shoving. Whether that influenced him, who knows? But at the end of the day, it was once. I'm with you. I don't think it'll get rescinded. You never know. I've seen some weird things where they get rescinded lately. So you never know. It's worth an appeal, I think. I don't think it's frivolous, but yeah, I'd be surprised as well. It's one of those things these days that tends to get read and doesn't get overturned. So no, but I don't think it was even reckless from him. I think it was just unlucky. He tried to kick the ball, missed it, caught the player. It's luck ultimately. But then once it's 1-1, they were in the ascendancy. We're down to 10 men with absolutely nobody to bring on the centre half. Then there's absolutely no way that was going to turn out any different, really, was it?
No, I know, and I'm thinking we have to appeal purely on the basis of thinking that's a desperation in that position. To be honest, even if we think it won't get rescinded, but I mean, as you say, you're in such a predicament then. I mean, what do you do? I mean, either Norton or Christie have to come on, and you don't really know who to bring on. Norton comes on, Key switches in the centre half, and he's pretty clumsy, really, isn't he, given the way of the penalty, which is frustrating because even though they had 11 men, I still didn't think that they were very good. I mean, they didn't ask a huge amount of questions of us, and obviously they've got that penalty, and it was enough to win, which is no shock because I didn't see us coming back at that point. But I do wonder if we hadn't given that away, whether we may well have been able to get what would have been a great and a well-earned point, really, but not great from Key, who is out of form, isn't he? But again, there's this problem of can't really drop him because the backup really isn't great.
It isn't, and I was a bit surprised he went central. I don't know if Christie was even on the bench. He's the one that's been filling in a centre half, hasn't he? But then he was there, and cardinal sin for any defender letting the ball bounce. I mean, it wasn't really in a centre half's channel. It was probably more in the right back's one, so he should have been at home. But he let it bounce, lost his bearings, caught the player, Stormwell penalty. Can't really argue. But yeah, I mean, that's Sheffield United. They this is kind of what they do in it. They don't concede many goals. They win games by the odd goal or two. They're not a massive threat up front, and it wasn't beyond the realms of possibility we could have ridden that out if we had a bit more defensive strength. But we didn't, and no. And I think once that penalty went in, it was really difficult to see how we were going to come back from that, because I think we'd even taken Cullen off as well at that point, didn't we? So we had very little in an attacking sense to do anything with it. So yeah, I mean, it's 2-1. You might as well go on the final whistle then, and we weren't coming back from that, were we?
No, I don't think we were, but I do at least, I can see the positives from last night. It was a good first half, as you say, the usual then, I suppose, in the second. But it's very difficult against these teams with parachute payments now. It does feel as if, particularly since COVID, that it's incredibly lopsided. Now, our record against those teams is horrific. We can barely ever get a point off them. So that isn't good enough, I must admit. But it is, hugely challenging, I think, for clubs like us now, isn't it? When they've got probably a squad of 20 odd, but pretty much all of them would start for us. And, we're looking at the bench and thinking, well, we've got to bring, a right back on to cover the centre half that's been, sent off, obviously. It's very tricky, isn't it?
I mean, parachute payments have corrupted the competition. There's no two ways about it. I mean, I remember back in my trust days, I actually went to a thing where they were doing this thing. There was the, this thing going through Parliament at the moment, Tracy Crouch. Who actually was part of the championship delegation, spoke to her and said, okay, well, we're in receipt of these, but they are corrupting the competition for our benefit as it goes. But they're doing that. So, in fairness to us, we did call that out at the time when we were benefiting from it. Probably not as much as we should have done due to the way we got relegated and completely screwed ourselves financially. But that's another story. But no, I mean, we've had 3 seasons of the championship where we benefit from it, and we're absolutely paying the price now because. There are teams like Leeds and Sheffield United who can bring internationals off the bench, whereas we're bringing off kids or Jay Fulton on. It's it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? And I think joked about the second half capitulations, but I think a lot of that's to do with our squad, our lack of depth, the same players playing week in, week out. I don't think I don't think Ronald are being particularly helped by the fact they're having to play every game because there's just no one else there who can come in. And I think Parker's starting to get some game time. I think that'll help, but we just don't have the bodies there for it, and I think it all comes back to that, doesn't it? Our lack of depth, our lack of real quality in the first 11, a lack of versatility. I think within the squad. I think we're paying the price for that at the moment.
Yeah, we are massively, aren't we? I mean, I wanted to get onto that really because we've touched on it there with Darling. We'll be missing for the next 3, which is our trip to Norwich on the weekend, which couldn't appeal less, even though we perked up a bit. I mean, good grief, 12:30 on a Saturday, couldn't get worse. Then the home game with Coventry and the game with Bristol City then as well. I mean, centre half wise, I mean, desperation is how I would describe it now for someone to come in. And I mean, I'm starting to get really annoyed at this. I mean, we're 3 weeks into the window. Now, I know that it's not easy to do business in January. Nobody ever would say that it is. But we went into the derby knowing that we had 2 centre-halves as a doubt. Nobody came in. And now we know for a fact that one player is going to be missing for the next 3. Now, someone at centre-half has to come in, don't they? I mean, it's at the point now where if it's a loan, it has to be that. Because we cannot go into the next 3 games without one of them, because we'd be lucky to get a point, I'd have thought. We're really going to struggle.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's not just... this doesn't come as a surprise, so let's be honest. We've
been asking for it all season, haven't we? I genuinely think that. We've got away with it.
We've massively got away with it. And the thing is, so long as you've got players are good enough, I think we saw this in 2011, you tend to get away with it so long as you got enough of a core that can turn up and is of sufficient quality, which we probably don't even have that at the moment. But we knew going into January we had Abbey as the backup centre half. He wasn't much copper though, but we knew that in January we were going to have to strengthen that position. So we've had months to do it. So nobody can say this is a complete surprise. One of the 2 or both of them getting injured is it's a very real possibility. So you need to have cover there. So I don't really buy this argument that they've not really they've been caught on a hop, or it's still early in the window, etc. This should have been done a lot earlier. There's a lot of talk about the Wickham defender. I mean, that doesn't look like it's a goer at the moment, but who knows? But I mean, you're absolutely right. If we don't get a centre half by within the next 10 days. It's we actually could be a threat because it's very difficult to see us keeping clean sheets. We're not going to score goals, so where does that leave us? And then can you imagine early February, like Cabango or Darling do have an injury? I mean, Harry Darling's out of contract in the summer. Is he really going to kill himself? Would you if you were in his shoes? We would need cover. We undoubtedly need cover. And yeah, I mean, I'm generally not massively in favour of loan signings unless there's no other alternative. But we need somebody centre off. There's no way about it. I think we probably need somebody in a couple of other positions as well. But whether there's the budget for it or not. I mean, 20 million did come into the club a couple of months ago. Whether that's just going on players' wages or the deficit, the running deficit, I don't know. But there needs to be some movement in that, absolutely, because we can't possibly go into the rest of the season with what we've got.
No, exactly. And I mean, I do agree with you generally on loan signings. I mean, I don't want. I certainly think there can be a place for one or two, but you don't want to do what we did under Steve Cooper, really. I mean, if you're going to do that, you have to go up, and we didn't. It didn't work then, obviously, did it? The gamble, but didn't work out. But I mean, like you say, it's desperation really a centre half now, isn't it? Because I think if we were to have a serious issue and one of the fullbacks had to play that the rest of the season, we're not going to pick up that many more points then. So it has to change, doesn't it? And I mean, I think we've all, I think everyone's happy, aren't they, that Levy and Kaplan have gone, and there's different people now in there, but there's got to be question marks, haven't there? Over what is going on behind the scenes, because it feels similar in some ways, doesn't it, at the moment, where we are being left short in certain positions and we're not acting on it. I mean, there is, we are recording this on the 22nd. They do still have time to sort it. And I mean, if they bring a 3 or 4 in or something like that, and they prove to be good, then, I'll happily eat my words. But I mean, certainly centre half-wise, someone should have been in by now. I'm finding it hard to think of an excuse for that. And I suppose what worries me a bit is the lack of football experience behind the scenes. I mean, is that a problem, do you think? I mean, it did always feel like when we had Hugh Jenkins for years who did do a great job, can't dispute it. And then Trevor Birch came in, Julian Winter. I mean, do we look at Coleman and think, is this guy great for us? It's hard to know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, but I do wonder at times with this because, football experience, I do think counts for a lot when you're running the club, and there's question marks at the moment, isn't there?
Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, you just mentioned there Birch and Winter. I mean, both of those are ex-professional footballers. Mark Allen was director of football. Andy Scott was director of football. We had those people. I mean, if you look at Coleman's tenure, I mean, we had Paul Watson, everyone's favourite. But even he had been involved in football club for a few years. I mean, I look at our board now and probably the upper echelons now. Who of those have actually been involved in the run of the football club? I mean, very few, if any, that I can think of. There's nobody I can think of. Said, there's somebody who understands football. Forget understanding Swansea. I think understands football. We don't really have that, and that's a bit of a worry. I think on the face of it, what Coleman said in the programme notes yesterday about only bringing in players who can strengthen the squad, I think, fine words, but I think it's probably ignoring reality a little bit in the sense we just need people. We need warm bodies at the moment because we don't have any. I mean, we do need to think a little bit short term at the moment just to get through this. I think, there's no point spending a couple of million. I get that, but no,
well, like you were saying, just centre half wise, if you have to, just bring someone in on loan. As long as they're decent and it isn't crazy price, it's reasonable enough. Just do that, isn't it? In that case, because we can't do without it, can we?
We can't, absolutely. And you do wonder whether they get that, whether they fully understand the situation we're in. I mean, question is, what the financial situation is. How much money is there? The money's come in. How much willingness is there to spend it? How much capacity is there to spend it? Forget FFP. I don't think that's really our main issue. Our main issue is what money we have in the bank. That's generally what's always been our problem. So you do wonder about that. But yeah, I mean, you said earlier, okay, what's changed? Well, at the end of the day, we've got an overseas ownership that isn't particularly well, doesn't have a lot of experience in running a football club. January window isn't going well. We've got a chairman who isn't really speaking to anyone publicly, unless it's involving potentially getting into Europe. We haven't had a fans forum in an age. He's kind of hiding away a little bit. It's there's some areas for concern, absolutely. But I'm always a bit wary of us speaking in the middle of a window because there's still 10 days to go, isn't there, pretty much, at the time.
Well, like I said, we'll happily be proved wrong, won't we?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I think I can't believe they don't understand the position we're in. I can't because it's self-evident. They must get it. So I'm expecting two or three coming in. I'd be shocked if they didn't. But I guess my concern is who the hell's choosing these players now?
Well,
Because
that's another problem, isn't it? It's
yeah,
it does feel like that, and
yeah,
you mentioned there about the lack of a fans forum, and I mean that really frustrates me. Now I would never expect to have one in the middle of a window, to be honest, which is fine. But I mean there hasn't been one at the stadium now since the middle of March last year. And you can't help but think if some of the tough questioning in that has contributed to them not wanting to do one again. That's the frustration, really, from my point of view. And for me, they should have had one as soon as they announced that there'd been a change of hands, but behind the scenes, because then everyone's happy, and it's a good time to do it. But I mean, I look at now the trust they're having an AGM, and that's going to be online only, which is that seems a bit odd in itself. Maybe it's because most of the members are from overseas now, and I guess it could be that, right? But then we hear that the chairman is going to do a Q&A before or after it, and I'm thinking to myself, so why are the trust members getting this chance then that nobody else is getting? Why is that? It's not a good look, is it?
It isn't. I'd like to think it's just naivety, really. I mean, I was glad to see the trust confirm that he wasn't attending the AGM because that's just all sorts of inappropriate for so many reasons that I can't even begin to express. But it is going to be separate. But as you say, the trust AGM is going to be virtual, which again, not ideal. I've seen former trust board members being quite critical of that publicly. I haven't said anything, which is a rarity on it. But it's I mean, it shouldn't be virtual. But yeah, I mean, is Coleman hiding? I mean, I think he's probably thinking, oh, this is an opportunity to speak to the fans. But the problem is, it's generally a very elderly or overseas membership. Generally, I think I don't know the metrics at the moment of the membership, obviously, but historically, it's tend to be older fans that have joined. So it certainly won't be tougher. It won't be representative. So and we're not going to know what was said ultimately. I hope a Q&A is released. I hope there's an opportunity for people to ask questions and for those to be answered fully and for everyone to see that. But it's absolutely no substitute for a proper fans forum. And forget having one in the window. This should have been happening every 3 to 6 months. And that's what we were doing 10 12 years ago. That's often these things were happening. I mean, the trusts are the ones organising them. They would get Hugh Jenkins there as a matter of course. This level of communication is just what happened at our club. It doesn't anymore. And do you remember at March? There was a lot of talk about Coleman saying, "Oh, every month they're going to be meeting with fans, to hear about these issues, etc." I mean, I've never seen them advertised since. I don't know where these things are happening. Are they still happening? I don't know.
It's a good question. I had one in May, so we're talking a while ago now. I don't know if they are still taking place. That's an honest, but that's the thing. We can't really ask these questions because how can you ask them?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if they are happening, what's coming out of them? I mean, how do you even get onto them? I've not heard a single thing about them since pretty much since last summer, I suppose. I do remember the first couple being advertised, so that's probably where you came into those, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the first couple were advertised, and then I think there was quite a backlog. So it went from there then basically. So that, to be fair, that was decent. I mean, whether I agreed with what he said or other people felt the same, but he's willing to give his time and willing to listen. So, but I mean, for me, the fans forums are essential really, because I did actually say to him in the one-on-one, I said, look, I know that would have been a challenging night for you, but I said, I hope you took a lot from it, because you would have understood how people are feeling, and you can go, right, okay, I understand a few things now, and maybe we can make some changes. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, as you say, years ago, like Hugh Jenkins, they would always front up, wouldn't they? Now, I'm not saying they would ever really take the criticism, maybe, because they're doing a pretty good job. But at the same time, they would have to listen to some criticism, wouldn't they? And they would take it.
Oh, there's always somebody moaning about something, and when you say what you think, and sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't, and that's life, isn't it? But that's what should be happening. But there's just been absolute silence, and I don't want to use this as opinion to be Coleman with, because I don't think it's just him. I mean, the trusts don't have a public forum themselves. They keep keeping things just to the members. But what about the owners? We've got these new ownership, as you say. They came in November. I mean, we can slag off Levin and Kaplan all we want, and I certainly have. But at least they fronted up to a fans forum after they bought the club. I mean, where's Cohen? Where's Cravat? Where are they? Hear a little bit of Cravat speaking to people in private. Going to a couple of local pubs. But where is he publicly? Why isn't he saying anything? These people own our clubs. Where's Morris? We haven't heard a single thing from them, apart from some bland statements after they joined, taking over the club. Absolutely nowhere, which is just unacceptable. And it's another red flag ultimately, isn't it? Because all there is silence at the moment. Silence from the club, silence from the ownership, silence from our representatives.
Yeah, I mean, it would, like you said, I think it would be good if they were all willing to just to be there, and we can ask them questions, and we can try ultimately we can try and understand them, and they can understand us, and it can only be a positive. And also, like I always remember this, you talk there about the Levy and the Kaplan one. They took some stick in that one, and deservedly so. No two ways about it, right? But they did front up. I will give them their due. They didn't do it again, which I suppose isn't a great opposite, but they did do it once, I suppose, in that sense. Yeah. So,
don't think for a second I'm defending them, but it's just, even right. They did it. Even they did it.
Yeah, they did do it once. I mean, it would be good. I do appreciate a lot of these guys that have bought it. They're not based here. Don't know how often they're coming over and stuff like that. We've got to be realistic about it. But it would be nice if they would just sit down once and say, look, we're here. We've bought. This is why we're here. Ask us questions, and we'll do our best to answer it. I mean, it's about trying to build a relationship and some trust and stuff, isn't it? I think that would be that could never be a bad thing, could it?
It couldn't, but I remember, Chris Watson did an interview with Coleman 6-9 months ago, which I thought was a really good interview. I mean, Chris gets some stick, but I think he asked some really tough questions on that one. It's not happened since. So this is just another example. These things should be happening regularly. Even I always think as Swans fans, we're quite forgiving so long as we can see that people are trying their best, but they're also open and they're available and accessible. And remember when I was in the trust, we got an awful lot of stick for not communicating. Even if we had nothing to say, it was just saying, this is what's happening. We don't have much to say, but so long as people see that you're putting things out there, that things are happening, and they're doing things for your best interests, then people, I think Swans fans, people generally are quite forgiving. But at the moment, it's just complete silence. And that's the real problem, because then it's just an absolute vacuum, isn't it? And people just think the worst. And especially we got a window at the moment of gaping holes in the squad. People are just going to say, well, what's happening? Where is what are you doing? Are you the right people to do these jobs? It's kind of moot because they own the club, but they need bang on about this all the time, but this needs to be improved. It really does, because at the moment it just feels like there's such a gulf, I think, at times between the club and the fans. There's a real disconnect, and we only to see the attendance yesterday to see how bad it was. January, cold Tuesday night in January, I get it, but that's not been unusual to see such gaps in the stands. And
I know, and Coleman did say in that one interview that he did, didn't he, about trying to reconnect with the fans and stuff. And to do that, you do need to front up a bit, really, don't you? I mean, you're not gonna do it any other way, I don't think.
No, absolutely. I mean, it takes a lot of hard work. It does, and it has to be continuous. It can't just be one gesture and then go away for a year and then think that's enough. That's just not how anything works. So there needs to be a lot of work from a lot of people, not just Coleman, but especially Coleman needs to take the lead, and it can't be just in cozy environments like a virtual trust forum. There needs to be more open to all the fans. I mean, best will in the world, the trust membership at the moment isn't particularly big. There's a lot more Swans fans who aren't members of the trust than are, but 95% ultimately, I suppose. So there needs to be more access for more people. But I think the fans just need to see that the owner of the club are operating in the best interest of the fans. And I guess there just isn't that feeling, and especially with season tickets on sale now. I mean, the amount of people I've seen saying they're not buying for next season, there's always been a bit of a drip for the last few years, but people who are pretty much mainstays saying, "Oh, I'm not going next year," very much picking and choosing where they go to. It doesn't bode well. And unless things change, and if we look at the squad, year on year we're getting weaker. Year on year crowds are getting smaller. I mean, that only leads one way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will give credit for is they have clearly looked at the issue in the family stand, and they have put some good prices up for next year. I mean, 300 quid for an adult, providing they take an under 14 with them, I think it is, and that's 50 quid. So you think for 15 quid per game, an adult and an under 14 can go. It's pretty good. You can't argue with that at all. The problem is if the football's crap, it doesn't really matter what you're charging. So that, I suppose, becomes the issue then. But I do think that to be fair, they've seen that there's an issue there, and they are really trying to correct it, aren't they? But I think we've got to try and engage as well, haven't they, to try and do that. So I'm just hoping that once the window is shut now, that they'll have a forum. It might be uncomfortable with some of the questions, but it really would help, wouldn't it? I mean, it would we'd get some answers to stuff, maybe not answers that we want, but it would certainly help to try and build a relationship, wouldn't it? Because it does feel like there's not much of one there right now.
Yeah, I mean, the price thing I don't think is that bad, but I think it's probably the lower end, which is from a sort of economic perspective, the South Wales it probably has to be. But no, there's no real issue there. But I mean, I think once people get out of the habit of going,
that's the problem.
Very difficult to get them back. I think it's going to be very difficult to get new fans in the way things are at the moment. So I think retention is an important aspect of that, and that doesn't really necessarily come down to price. It comes down to a lot of other things, and especially in these days where you can see 46 games on the telly. I mean that wasn't the case 10 years ago, but now you can. It's very easy. I mean, whether people should or shouldn't, everyone has access to these sorts of streams, so it's easily done, isn't it? So,
and a lot of games now get moved, of course, don't they? I mean, that's, to be fair, that's not really something that the Swans can control, but it is something that they have to deal with. I mean, you look at the game now on the weekend at Norwich. Yeah. It's another one. It's all these type of things have changed the way that it is. I mean, and obviously, as you say, you can find ways to watch games, but I mean, on a Tuesday night, for example, like last night, I mean, you can legally watch it on Sky. So there's that as well, isn't there? It is far more challenging for clubs these days. So I do have sympathies in that sense, but the fact is you've got to deal with these circumstances. It's not going to change.
The club voted for it. Ultimately, they voted for this deal. So when 10 games or however many games it is, I think we only get 12 Saturday games a season at home. The rest of midweek, something like that. That's it's not great. 12-13 Norwich. I mean, whoever came up with that niche shooting, it's just.
It's the same as last week. Bournemouth got dragged up to Newcastle, didn't they? At half 12. It's like it's not right, is it?
Completely inconsiderate of the fans. I mean, it's very, very difficult for people to get there. Especially in times like this where people are struggling with financially. Getting to Norwich at the best times isn't cheap. To really do this, you're either leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning or leaving at 3 o'clock. I don't know when the buses go. Probably.
It's a good question. They're probably going at 3 or 4. I'd have thought.
Yeah. But in reality, it's there's an element of danger driving at 5 o'clock in the morning, isn't there? You won't have had a good night's sleep. So
this time of year as well, where the conditions might not be great.
Well, there's a storm on Friday, isn't there? So absolutely, it could be a very, very sparse crowd and safe travels and fair.
Well, there was a storm on Saturday. I hope there's not another one this one.
Oh God, yeah. But yeah, it's fair play to anyone who's going. I'm not. I couldn't face that. I've been to Norwich enough times.
I've been once. I actually went when we won 3-2 under Martinez. I think Jason Scotland, Aaron Prattley and Ferry Boulder scored. It was the game before Boulder done his knee, actually. But I remember that one thinking, and it got to about 8 o'clock, and we got back to the M25, obviously on the eastern side, and just thinking, like, this is just mental. I thought I couldn't face this. And we won this one. I remember the first year in the Prem where we were 1 down in a minute and 2 down in 10. And I'd been thinking at 3:10, my weekend is in tatters and I am a significant way from home. But anyone that's going, you're unbelievable or mad, basically. But there'll be a few that live in the area, won't there? But what you make of this fixture really for us? I mean, it's like you said, it's a big problem at centre half we've got, isn't it? And we don't have long to correct it before Saturday. I mean, I thought Norwich were a decent team when we played them earlier in the season. think their parachutes have run out now, haven't they? So they're probably a bit weaker than what they have been, really. But this is, I would say, even with both centre halves playing, this would be a challenging game. I would be happy with the point.
Oh, I'd be ecstatic at a point. I think we beat them home, didn't we, quite comfortably? But I think they had
1-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, so they did have some chances, but we won that. I don't think we're quite in the same place as we were then, and they seem to be very high scoring games from what I've seen of theirs. So, which that probably doesn't bode well for us. But we're very hot and cold, so you never really know what you're getting with us. But based on our last 3 away games, it's really difficult to see anything other than a bit of a battering. But as an optimist, which I sometimes am, no, you got to hope, and you got to hope. And there's enough quality there that if it sparks at the right time, we could get results. We have got results at Coventry, places like that, which pretty similar to Norwich. So no, I think you got to be optimistic, but it's really difficult to be after the last week, isn't it? And with the squad as it is, and I think we'd be a lot more optimistic if there's a couple of players come in before Saturday. It's looking unlikely, but no, I think hopefully. Oh, actually, Darwin's out either way, isn't he? Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah, exactly. So, at least there is now only one game left before the window shuts.
Yeah.
So I suppose if you look at it in that way, I'd like to think there will be people in after that, but we'll see. And I suppose the other thing we haven't talked about is that hopefully we'll get a new sporting director in the near future as well, and that will help us out as well. But
we need some. That's the problem. Yeah,
it does feel like we need to get Saturday out the way, I guess, in some ways. And hopefully if we've got a couple in, that will just give us that booster, because we all need a boost right now, I think, as well, don't we? Because it has been a tough week, isn't it?
We do, and I think I was no fan of Paul Watson. I was quite happy when he left, but we need somebody in that sport director role better than that. Ultimately, somebody who's somebody like Ocean Robertson like that, would be brilliant. But somebody who understands our club, somebody who understands football, who can actually get a grip of the club. That's what we need in it. So obviously we're not going to get him, but somebody of that sort of ilk is what we need, and hopefully that's priority one. Hopefully they don't, their egos aren't big enough to think they can do it themselves. I really hope that's not the case. But we need probably one or two people like that at the helm of our club who can really help get us through this, but also take us forward as well. I think everyone focuses on new players. Sometimes spending good money on one or two people in the back office is worth better than getting some numpty on loan just to cover a space. It's I hope that's a priority, but it's been a while since Watson's gone, and there's nothing.
I suppose it wouldn't be easy to maybe get somebody when the transfer window is approaching, I suppose, and then I suppose there's always the thing of gardening leave potentially, isn't there, and stuff like that. So it isn't easy, but we do need to at least I think make an announcement soon about who it is, and hopefully then that they'll join soon afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, there's already somebody there. Because Watson was behind the scenes a little earlier than he was announced. Who knows? Because nobody tells us what's going on in our club. So maybe somebody already there.
It's possible, isn't it? I mean, the truth is, there's probably wheels turning, aren't there? But the problem is they now need to come to fruition, don't they? Certainly, some of them do anyway, because we're getting desperate. I think that's probably a fair way of looking at it. I think that's a good time to end. Look, it's not been the easiest of listens. For most of you, I'm sure it's not been the easiest conversations either. But I do thank you for joining us. Big thanks to Andy for taking one for the team and joining me on. I suppose, Andy, you did get the invite after Cabango scored the last-minute winner at Cardiff. So
there we go.
That maybe this is the payback for it. But a big thanks to everyone for listening. Like I say, not our favourite one, but hopefully things will look up soon. We will probably do one next week, but it might depend on, obviously, with the transfer window shut in. We may be in danger of being out of date quickly, so I'm not going to guarantee there'll be one next week, but there will definitely be one the week after, and then hopefully we'll be a bit more optimistic. A couple of bodies through the door, and maybe even a result at Norwich if we're lucky. But finally, thanks for joining us, and we will be back soon. But bye for now.